This evening, I wish to expose a very important system to you in ways we have not before. We're going to call it the beginning of the information about innate. We have given channels before, and one of them was the mysterious innate. We have given you some of the attributes about your own body. And we wish to enhance it tonight. I have been giving information to my partner. And he receives it through intuition. He's even begun to build a program around it. And yet it's never been publicly channeled. It is the integrity of the way that I work with him that says that many of these things should be put to you and given to you so that you can hear it and analyze it. At the same time, he begins to teach it. So that others will know what he knows as he begins his process as well. All that to say that, dear ones, it is time for teaching to begin, which is beyond what you've had in the past. It starts to identify and show you some of the grandness inside. Earlier today, I said I know who's here. It is a family that I speak to in the room. It is a family who listens to these channelings. And I again broach the timelessness of what we are doing. The information presented here will last a long time, and there will be those hearing it right now for the first time, and yet much time will have passed since it was given in your time. And it will be as new to them as it is to you. The energy will be just as fresh. And I say to you that in this timeless attribute of the reality that I am in, I see the potentials of all listeners forever. I know who's listening. That may be difficult for you. Dear ones, I want to tell you about a process in your body. Not only mysterious to you because it is one that does not present itself in 3D, but elusive, where you don't know how to get to it really. Not completely. And yet it belongs to you so well that it is you. And you might ask, how can something be inside me, Kryon, that I don't know about? And I will say yet again to you that you are not working at full capacity. And that this is the subject of this year. The recalibration of humanity includes an evolved spirit. And we're going to talk a little more about that in this channeling. But let us first identify innate. What makes innate so mysterious to you is that it is not a brain function. It is perhaps one of the only systems in the body that is not centralized. This is difficult. It has not been discovered. It is not known in medical science, but it has been seen over and over. What you have in DNA is very difficult to explain. The trillions of DNA molecules in your body are all in communication with each other all the time. This has to be the way of it. If you think about what DNA does, How does your body know which kind of cell it needs and where it needs it? It is innate that it's responsible for that literally at birth. The DNA, you might say, is truly esoteric central control. It is the field around the trillions of pieces of DNA that knows itself as one entity. The one entity is innate. So you might say that it is the combination of the DNA cells in your body seen as one thing that is what you call smart body innate. It is decentralized. There is no one organ of the body that is responsible for innate. Every single part of the body is involved in smart body systems. You're used to finding out things through innate, with muscle testing, the kinesiology, the tapping, all of the other systems that give you what we will call smart feedback, in order to find out what the smart body wants to tell you. And those who facilitate this know that they are talking to a field in the body and not an organ, not a gland, not the brain. So the first thing we want to tell you about innate is that it is body-wide. Anything that has DNA in you, and it's usually that which you can think of perhaps a major part of you, like the heart. You feel you're talking to that, but you're not. Innate is in your toenail and in your hair. Innate is everywhere DNA is, in any form that DNA exists. It's unique and it's you. Now, I've told you that medical science has seen this, but they don't understand it. So let me give you the example. When a human being has the spinal cord severed in an accident, it is severed. We have talked about this before. Isn't it odd that it doesn't grow back? When everything else in the body is programmed to regenerate, the cells do not regenerate in a way where the nerves grow back. We have also told you there will be a time when it does, and that this is all part of the evolved human that is coming. But let us talk about the way it is now. Let us see that you know or have seen a paraplegic. A man or a woman in a chair who can move nothing but their head. Now, does it make sense to you that all of the nerves are severed in the spinal cord, and yet the things in the body that depend on the brain signals continue to work? The heart continues to beat, but you are told that the heart needs the brain to send the signals. You're told that the timing is in the brain for the signals to be in the right pattern. Digestion continues. Reproduction continues. Most of the body functions below the neck are uninterrupted, and yet the brain is not sending signals anymore. How do you explain it? Medical science actually has a word for it. And the word would indicate that something takes over innately in the body. It's innate. It is the DNA that keeps you alive. The DNA of this body actually connects with the brain, and the signals are still sent in a quantum way. Remember, the DNA field is in connection with the full body all the time, even though the spinal cord is severed. The brain continues to send the signals. The DNA field receives them and sends them to the heart, to the digestive, everything but the muscles. I ask you to look at this, and you'll know that I am right. So you have proof of this. Innate, the smart body, will keep you alive, even if the wires to the brain are severed. Innate is smart. It is why we call it the smart body. The innate is smarter than that which you will call the survival organ, which is the brain. Innate is connected to something you should know about. Innate is connected to the higher self. Innate is connected to the Akashic record of the human being, because in the DNA, those things are there. We gave you information so long ago about the layers of DNA, and now we're telling you that there is a cumulative DNA consciousness in its field called innate. It's time for you to think of your DNA as one thing, not trillions of things. Science does not even acknowledge that DNA can communicate with itself. And yet it has to, in order for you to work the way you work. The beauty of what we're teaching is this, is that the corporeal body, the one that the brain controls, is beginning to build a bridge to innate. And this bridge is going to be through intuition, and will create eventually a time where you will be your own medical intuitive, where you will know not only what is going into your body and what is going on in your body, but also what's going on in your Akash. I have 3 things I want to describe to you today. None of them are a review. Not really. They're a revelation. I want to tell you what innate does, and I want to tell you that innate has programming. Innate is programmed for something you should know. Whereas the human brain is programmed for corporeal survival, innate is programmed for spiritual survival. You might ask, what is the mandate? What is the prime directive, if you want to use that terminology, for the human soul? Why are you here? Your brain keeps you alive, dear ones. It helps you with everyday existence. It tries to keep you safe. It remembers what doesn't work day to day, corporally. But innate, I want you to think for a moment about what innate knows. Innate knows what the ancients knew. How long humanity had on this planet before it would have to make a decision. Innate knows that. Your DNA knows that. What is the prime directive of innate? To do everything it can for you to allow an awakening to take place, to allow humanity to go across the bridge and move into an ascended planet status. That is the prime directive. Spiritual survival, everything is designed around that. To push you forward in any way possible into spiritual awareness. That is what innate is for. In the process, innate also crosses the bridge with corporeal chemistry in very, very different ways. Innate is responsible for spontaneous remission. You want to know where that comes from? How can you have a disease disappear overnight? How is it possible that the corporeal body can react and cleanse itself of something so unbalanced overnight? How can tissue grow at an accelerated rate to give healing overnight? I have just given you things that the hospitals have seen over and over. They have x-rayed them. There is no way, they would say. And yet it is a miracle. No, it isn't. It's innate. That's the power that you have. When innate finally starts to build the bridge to the corporeal self, the human being as you know it will disappear. And the one that takes its place will have a long life, able to repair itself, even grow limbs back. That is how it was designed, dear ones. That should make sense to you. But let's talk about it today. Kryon Book 1. All those years ago, I talked about something that innate is responsible for. I said it's time to drop your karma. Where is karma stored? It is a result of past life experience pulled forward through the veil into a reincarnate body. It is an energy of unfinished business. That's karma. It's in the DNA, and innate governs it. And so, when we said it's time to drop your karma, how did we say to do it? You must talk to your body, talk to your cells, and say, I am done with the energy of the past, I drop the karma, I move forward. These were the first instructions you ever had from me about a process that crosses the bridge from the corporeal self to the innate. Pure intent. You address your body in a way that is so pure that the body sees it and acts. And that is how karma is dropped. Now I want you to see what was not stated. Would it make sense to you that as you come into an energy as an old soul where karma is no longer needed, wouldn't the smart body innate drop it by itself? And the answer is no. Now listen, because this is the teaching of the day. You see, innate, as smart as it is also programmed. And it's programmed in a survival for spiritual self. And karma has always played a part in that. You have got to deprogram innate. It has a bias. It's been doing this as long as you've been a human. It was designed to do certain things in a certain way, and consciousness is the key to change it. It always was. It always will be. Your free choice is needed to deprogram what I will call the instruction sets of innate. So dropping your karma was the first instruction we ever gave you. Now there's more. And it gets more complicated. Innate is programmed to try to keep you into spiritual survival, and there is an older system in innate that it still has, and you've got to deprogram it. This reprogramming, you might say, through consciousness is not hard. Your consciousness, through pure intent, is king. You've always known you can change your chemistry, heal your body. Talking to innate is the key. How would you like to trigger your own spontaneous remission? Think about that. You can do it. This is the next step, dear ones. Talking to a cellular structure and controlling your chemistry is one thing. Controlling innate is another. It's you. You have permission. We told you some things in a channeling recently. We told you that affirmations are important. Now, affirmations are not repetitive phrases of meaningless consequence. And you know the difference. If you've memorized things that people told you to memorize, and mindlessly you repeat them over and over in order to accomplish a certain number of times, nobody is listening. Nobody. Because it is not seen as anything but verbose conversation with yourself. That's it. Consciousness that is focused is pure intent. You mean it. Affirmations, especially the ones you create yourself out of your own consciousness, put to your body on a regular time schedule on purpose. You have an appointment with your innate and you're going to talk to it, and here is the affirmation. And that is the way it works. You must talk to your innate as your best friend, as a human being sitting in front of you, and you're going to have a conversation. Would you then just repeat things over and over to another person? And the answer is no. You give them the credibility of intelligence to listen. That is the credibility you must have with innate. Innate is your smart body. And it's time for you to reprogram what it thinks is your spiritual survival, because innate has not crossed that marker with you. Your consciousness has crossed into this new energy, and now it's time for you to reprogram everything. Recalibration, dear ones, is not automatic. Old soul, there are a few things you should know. Do you find it interesting that innate knows all about your past lives, but you don't? How is that for a system? How would you like to know more? What is it that you have in your past lives that you could use today? We've talked about this. Mining the Akash is done through free choice of consciousness talking to your innate. Muscle testing, yes. Tapping, body talk, affirmations, whatever you can do that circumvents the corporeal logic of the human brain will work for innate. You have got to think different. You are used to quantity, repetition, loudness, perhaps. You're used to linear concepts to change things within you. Allopathic, no. Homeopathy counts on innate to work. Did you know that? A tincture sends a signal to the smart body to make the changes that the tincture has intent for. That's the reason for homeopathy remedies. They're designed specifically to send a signal to innate. Do they work? Oh, yes. You see, there's a whole concept of who you are that lurks in a place that we're asking you to connect to. If you connect to innate, you can start finding out about who you used to be. Innate will give you what you need to know because it's smart. You can ask innate who you were in a past life, and it will not tell you if it is not important for your spiritual survival. But it will give you karma to push you into areas that it thinks you need for spiritual survival. So let us talk about what you have to reprogram, which is the biggest issue of innate. Number one, drop your karma. We say it again. That is number one. What is it that continues to push you around, dear ones, that is the Achilles heel of your personality? What is it that is there that you just don't understand why it's there? I'll tell you, it's the energy of the past. Get rid of it. Innate will do what you tell it. If it sees that which is spiritual logic, and it will, because this channel, innate is listening to, along with you. You are the consciousness trigger to change your own innate. What is it that innate is built to do that makes no sense at all? And I'm going to tell you right now, with everyone listening. Dear ones, there is a system called reincarnation that is the engine at the moment for spiritual advancement on the planet. You live a lifetime, you learn certain things, and you die. You are reborn into the planet, and in your DNA, Akash, or I'll say the well of wisdom, it is there. And it presses upon you, so you will not necessarily do the same thing again. An old soul knows better in so many things that a new soul does not. You see newbies on the planet, and they can't make heads or tails out of anything. You've been there and done that. Every single lifetime builds a library of wisdom. As you sit in the chair today, you know you're an old soul. You do. Now, here is what innate has learned the system requires. Are you ready? Death. In order for you to graduate and pick up the wisdom and move forward into a higher spiritual consciousness, potentially in the next life, whether you do it or not, the potential only exists with death and rebirth. Are you starting to see where this is going? Innate, on purpose, will give you short lifetimes. What a system. Suddenly, you pass the marker. You come to a place where the Pleiadians knew you would be. You have the ability for the first time to do what we saw you could do 25 years ago when I came to this planet in my partner and wondered whether his stubbornness would ever allow a message like this. I want all of you to start telling innate that you don't need to die in order to capture the ideas that you are being given now of an advanced spiritual thought. That in the same lifetime that you live without death, you now have the ability of capturing wisdom and moving forward. You don't need to die. You don't need to reincarnate. You can do it by yourself. You have that in your DNA. It's starting to increase. By the time you get to 36, do the numerology. It's done. You now have the ability to stay. Innate doesn't know that. Thousands of years. It has been progressing your spiritual growth by short lifetimes. I hope my partner is understanding this, giving you this in a way you can see. What if you didn't have to do this way? Innate needs to know it. Longer lifetimes are the key. Doesn't it make sense, dear ones, logically to you, that you can accomplish more on this planet if you don't have to be reborn and grow up all over again? Stay. Some of you carry around what we will call a near-death experience potential. Now, this is a time when perhaps the karmic part of you saw your death. The potential exists for a synchronicity that pushes you right into what innate thinks you need. Time for completion. Because you need to be reborn and get on with it, because that's the only engine it has ever known for you to carry the wisdom over the veil. And now, as you start to touch the higher self, you can bring it into your current lifetime. You can have the aha experience. Some of you can be brought to your knees and come out with a completely different personality. And it's happened to those who are listening to this right now. Who were you 15 years ago? Are you the same one? You think the same way, you do the same things. There are many on this earth who will say, yes, I'm the same person. Of course I am. That's the way I was born. Not you. Because you know you've changed your personality. You've changed your human nature. You've even changed your corporeal structure. There are those in here who have stopped aging. That's what this is about. The key to stopping the aging process as you know it today is by communicating to the innate and saying you don't have to die to have a spiritual growth. And you can do that any way you want. Learn how to build affirmations that are positive. Get in touch with the body through whatever process starts to come your way, where you can communicate, and you know you are, to that smart body. And let me tell you, you don't have to convince it. It knows it. As soon as it sees the progress that you have made in your consciousness, it's a done deal. Did you hear that? Innate knows who you are. It's the smart body. It wants to cooperate. As soon as it sees a new avenue of spiritual evolution, you may live a lot longer than you want to. So that's the next thing. Stay healthy while you don't age. Is it complicated? No. Is it filled with love? Yes. Is it new? Yes. I just gave you an attribute I have never been able to give humanity, and you heard it for the first time tonight. And you had to cross the veil to get this, that veil of the 2012 energy in past 2013 into 2014. I knew I could do it this year. It's time you knew the truth, that you're in control of even time on this planet. That's how powerful you are. You're going to see it. And then you'll believe it. Not all of you are able to do it with the same strength. That's because each of you are individuals. Dear ones, I know who you are. The old souls of this planet awake. Awaken to the new processes of a new kind of life. And in the process, don't be afraid of what you see around you. Because there will be those who don't agree, who can't do it, who don't understand it. Sometimes the difference that you are will frighten them. Not forever. Because there'll come a time when all humanity will know what I'm teaching tonight. And so it is.
From that beautiful place of deep peace, feel the gratitude in the room, the appreciation, the caring, the compassion, the shanti, the peace in your heart. And allow yourself to open that beautiful heart to the peace that's available to you every day. And let these hours, these meditations, these channels, these lectures, bring that peace back to you. When you feel yourself leaving, come back with a breath. Come back with a remembrance of your own true peace, your own true power, your own ability to choose peace. And take a breath. And feel the yes of choosing peace. And know that that yes is always with you. Just as our beautiful entourage in this room, our family, the choice of being here, the choice of taking this energy inside of you into the world and walking in the peace and the love.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. There are those who continue to say that channeling is an odd thing. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit into that which you have learned might be truth. And there are those who say, well, it's for many reasons. First of all, who are you? I'm the magnetic master. And why would I be magnetic? And what is that word doing in a spiritual context? I met my partner in 3D on this planet with his choice 26 years ago. And he might have told you about the opening sortie, about the meeting. He might have indicated his reluctance when he was alone, in the dark, by the way. When he sat in the chair for the first time and said, if you're there, show me. In that moment, his countenance, his brain, his heart, his pineal, all were synchronized and asking for a sign. He wasn't sure. And in that, he had given the invitation to be shown. He gave permission. And what he got, he didn't expect. For when he sat in the chair, he cried. An emotion welled up in him, and tears came down his cheek, and he bounced out of the chair and was angry. It's true, all of it. It was a form of control, he decided. He didn't ask to feel the emotion, but he had. And he did it again and again. And the reason is because the engineer, the pseudo-scientist in him, got a cause and effect relationship that he could not explain. And so he did it again. There were no words, there were no messages like this. There was no advice, nothing except emotion. And dear ones, that is when his heart lit up. And when he connected it to that which was his persona. And he got out of his head. And it took years for him to understand what was happening, to be comfortable with it, and then to realize he needed to share it. It was too big. It was too grand. He tells people that God got bigger than the box that he was in. He began to use terms like the master physicist of the universe is God. That the more you learn about science, the more you learn about the Creator. And that there is no separation. And that it is men and women who choose to separate themselves with free choice from God. And here we are. And those who listen are either believing or not that this might be a message. But they still want to know, who are you? What if there was no real who? The singularity of your bias says that it's got to be a singular entity. Those who want to draw me, put skin and wings on me, give me a name. Make me an angel. Make me singular. I'm one because you think you're one. And you're not. Hardly. If you could see the essence of that which you call your soul, there is multiples. Because God is not singular. That which you call God is not singular. That which you see as the creative source is not singular. It is a soup, if you wish to. Say this, a soup of benevolent love. In a quantum way, it cannot be qualified or quantified. It is the essence of all. And that's who you are. And the disguise you have is that you're singular. You wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and that's the same face for all those years. And it's a joke. It's a trick. You are so much bigger than this. But for this test, dear ones, and for this experience, dear ones, on this planet, it must be this way. But many of you are starting to see a bigger truth. And the bigger the truth becomes, the more benevolent and beautiful it is. I have never given you a message that was anything but congratulatory, a beautiful message of love for you, for what you're doing on the planet, for where you've been, what you've become, where you've come from. I've never told you you had to be something or be somewhere. I've just said that with free choice, there are some tools that if you open the toolbox, you'd see them. And I could start listing the tools we've talked about. The ability to sense love. The ability to be slow to anger, to develop past that which you call human nature. The ability to heal yourself, the ability to stay here a long time. All built in. In these 2 days, you have heard the science. It says the same thing. We told you years ago that your climate change was cyclical. We told you that warming precedes cooling. And you heard the science. We told you why. We told you you didn't create it. And now you've heard the science. I'll tell you, the science is always going to back up that which has been created by the Creator. The cycles have been created for a reason. And the reasoning behind the cyclical energies of this planet, of your life, of the biology, of the economics, is all there for a reason. So you'll feel comfortable with it because here it comes again and you can do with it what you wish. It's not a shock. It's not a surprise. And we've told you that. But here you sit in an energy that you'd never experienced before, ever. The civilization that you call Earth is poised on the brink of choice. But it isn't one that is happening instantly. It has already started. To some of you, it is 50 years old. Dispensations of energy shift and change and cycles occupy decades of time. They are not a flash in the pan, as you say. And so many of you have been involved in that which we would call spirituality, awakening to that which is your own abilities. God is inside. You are God. We have told you that from the beginning. Isn't it beautiful to know that you do not have some entity in the sky that is going to judge you? And that instead is part of the love scenario that you have set up and created for yourself. It's benevolent and will continue to be. But there's something up. You see, as the energy starts to shift on the planet that lets you become more aware of these things which have been taught this weekend, communications from the other side of the veil, whatever you think that is, and you, starts to shift in its methodology. This morning we gave the example of parenting an 8-year-old as opposed to a 19-year-old. And this was done so you would see that as your consciousness shifts, human being, so does that which is the messages from the creative source and the way it works. And it starts to look different and feel different and be more advanced. That's frightening to some. Some time ago, we gave you some advice about communications with Spirit. And what we told you is that Spirit and you communicate at a different paradigm than humans and you. And we told you this, that timing is not the same. To get used to the fact that the actual paradigm of communication that you are used to in parenting and hierarchy is not the way we work. There is no time. Time is yours, not ours. You created it. Our time is in a circle. If you want a hint of this, you take a look at the quantum energies and what is being discovered about time. And you will see that a three-dimensional outlook is very rigid and boxed and segmented and patterned, and you must have time. But as soon as you get out of 3 dimensions, you don't go to 4, you don't go to 5, or even 6 or 7. You go to all. It becomes multidimensional, not numbered as 6 or 7. And if you did number them, you'd be linear. You'd still be in 3. And it's confusing. And that's where you're going. So some of you get messages from Spirit that says you don't belong here, you belong in another city, move there. And things will happen. You jump up, you sell everything and move there and nothing happens. And we've said this to you many, many times, and my partner teaches this, and the phrase is, who told you to do it now? And that was just one tiny change of a paradigm of communication between the other side of the veil and what you're used to here. Spirit will reveal things that are potentials for you long before they actuate in your 3D. You don't manifest them right away. But it's guidance for you to feel and be wise and move when you feel it's correct to move. Now that is free will with a little push. It wouldn't be free will, would it, if Spirit said, get up and move? It wouldn't. And so when you get these messages, be circumspect and understand that you are being given a beautiful, beautiful message, that there's more for you in another place. And then understand to look around and feel and use that which is your intuitive power and the tools that you're being developed to know when to go there. And we've said that before, but there's more, dear ones. There's a lot more. Because things are starting to shift and change, and human beings think a certain way and then react a certain way because that's all you've ever done. When you learned to read, dear ones, you had a primer, a reading primer, and you can, some of you remember this. As the neurons connected and the language became there and you recognized the letters and the words and you could start to read. This was the tool that was used in your consciousness of society to let you read. And it worked. Now I'm going to ask you, where is that primer today? Are you carrying it with you? And the answer is no, because it got absorbed into that which you call your intellect, into that which is your cellular knowledge and structure. You simply read. I want you to start applying this to the way Spirit works with you. How would we show an unbeliever something that is beyond that which they expected? They may have a vision. You may have a dream. You may have a feeling, a very, very powerful feeling. And in this, you're shown something. And the neurons start connecting and you start understanding there's more to life than I thought. Look, I'm having visions, I'm having dreams. These things are being shown to me. Isn't God great? Look, I've got a message here. It's a wonderful message. And then suddenly it stops. And what does a human do? They usually go into a dark room and say, dear God, what did I do wrong? It stopped. Did you ever think that perhaps there's been a connection and you don't need those anymore because now they're intuitive? And you're going to walk around the planet having the knowledge that used to have to come from a primer vision. What about that? You graduate. So for those of you who wondered if you lost it, what if you graduated instead? You see, it's not what you think. Some of the things that brought you here, that you loved, and the feelings that you had, have moved past that. And now you're walking differently. It's inside you. You know the truth. You don't need those simplistic things anymore to take you to a place of euphoria that you didn't expect. Instead, you're asked to generate them on your own. To sit in a place and create the peace. The same feeling you had in the vision. The same feeling you had in the dream. Being taken care of, being loved. Maybe seeing a face. You can do this yourself. You're on your own because you are a piece of the creative source that is graduating. Could I make it any clearer? That's just one thing. There are other things we've never spoken of. You make an assumption things are linear and singular. We have spoken about being an awakened soul. You understand that there's more than what you've been told. You start making the connection that the spiritual core of everything is yours. You are a piece of this. And you become alert and awake, much to the chagrin of your neighbors and your friends and the people you live with. You change. But you make an assumption. The weekend that you have just passed through contained profound teaching about cycles. And if you paid attention, you saw that the cycles were unique to the paradigm of what you were looking at. You had an earth cycle, you have a spiritual cycle, you have a weather cycle, you have a personal cycle. And yet, somehow, some way, there's the idea that if you awaken, everything is going to come together at once. It isn't. Let me tell you, there are waves of graduation and cycles. And because you didn't get them all at once again, you go into a dark room when nobody is looking and say, what did I do wrong? Dear Spirit, I've done everything. I know you're there. I can feel you there. I can feel the love. I'm awake. I'm awake. I'm awake. So why is this happening in my body? Why can't I shake this habit? Why can't I get the job I want? You said I could. I'm awake. Look. I believe in you. How much patience do you have to understand that all things happen as they should in the cycles that are designed for you at the right time, at the right place? And if you had them too soon or too late, they wouldn't work. They wouldn't work. And so we heard you. Did you know that you're actually in control? And that the more you understand about these things that happen in waves and cycles and the timing of them in your situation, the more you can relax and say, thank you, it's here. All right, there are those in the room that have been waiting for the healing. I know who you are. Do you know it's coming? And it's going to come appropriately. And when the time is right, it's going to come completely. I got 8 people in this room that need to drop a habit in order to live longer. You know who I'm talking to. And you say, well, I've tried and it doesn't work. Maybe there's a timing connected with it. Have you looked at this? Have you listened today? Have you looked at the cycles of your life and the times where it's more appropriate to change, where it's easier to change? Do you understand why there's energy in astrology, in numerology? Because these things around you are part of you. The magnetic grid is part of your consciousness. It reacts to your consciousness. That makes it part of the heliosphere of the sun, which also reacts. That means that the solar system is connected to you. No wonder astrology works. Have you thought about it? Are there cycles for you to look at? Have you really looked into these kinds of things to know when there might be an appropriate time that is better for you to heal? Some of you have been trying to get ahead for so long and get out of the cycle, you say, where you're not abundant. And you worry about it. And it's part of the fear scenario. And what makes it worse is the fact that you haven't understood that it comes in waves. Not everything comes together. And one of the things that you have to do is an awakening first. And that then creates a maturity. The maturity then creates a connection ability for you to actually believe things are happening and see them in your future. One thing leads to another and you graduate, and then it begins. And you find yourself at the right time, at the right place, crawling out of those habits that you had or the abundance issues that you had. And some of you said, well, it took long enough. Not realizing that it was perfectly timed. How many of you have given up? Well, I got half of it right, but I don't know about the other half. Not understanding, it's still there, it's still coming, it's still in your future. And what are you doing with it? Are you tapping your toe and saying, anytime, Spirit? Is there an irritation? Maybe there's even an anger. Not understanding. It's yours. Let me give you a hint and a secret. You're blocking the creation of what you're asking for. You're blocking the creation of it. The timing may have come and gone. Oh, there'll be another cycle. You're going to tap your toe through that cycle as well? Or you're going to see it as accomplished in your mind in the future and celebrate being abundant, being healthy. Having the things that you have asked for because we want you to stay here. You are a creator of reality. But you can't do it with 3D paradigms. You can't do it like you were raised. You can't do it with discipline and punishment and all the things that you think that are God. It doesn't work that way. Does this surprise you? Dear ones, this is more complex than you think, and yet it's so simple. As you awaken and discover compassion and love for yourself, you can then generate it for others. We said it before. You've got to love yourself first. That is where the compassion starts to be generated that's so pure, as you saw in the Masters. That's why people then would be attracted to you. This is how you change the planet. It's emotion, isn't it? It's compassion. It changes the environment around you. People can feel it. You walk into a room, you can feel whether there's a strain there, whether there's anger there, or whether there's a release and happiness and joy there. So why not understand it? You're the creator of all that. You're your own compassion engine. You're your own reality engine. What's your perception of all this? Things are changing. There was a time when we told you that you could talk to that which you call your innate, and you could do it without it being out loud, and you only had to do it once or twice, and innate would listen. Those were the old days. Because suddenly, speaking out loud and your voice into the atmosphere around you, coming back into your ears and hearing yourself say something has more power than it ever has in the history of the planet. With the energy shift, with the magnetic shift, with all of the things we've talked about, a new paradigm is here. Speak out loud your truth and affirm things that you believe perhaps in 3D are potentials, but they're not. They're reality. And the more you affirm them to yourself, the more real they will become, and the quicker they will appear, because the cycles will adjust for you. Affirmations, repeated every day. I dare you. Because you're going to feel it. You're going to know I'm right. It's like exercising energy. The more you hear it, the more you say it, the more neurons will come together and create it. Do you understand this? You cognize things and they become you. It's a circle. You with you. And it's never been more powerful. This is different. This is different than when I talked to you when I came in, even from 10 years ago. You've earned it. Dear ones, we are giving you this information. Not because you're doing anything wrong, because we want to advance this which is so available for you right now. I want you to leave this place differently than you came. I know in this room who is not paying attention. I know who's sleeping. There's something called the third language. You can't get away, because it's going in anyway. And the reason why is because you gave permission and intent to sit in this room and hear it. Even if you came here by accident, even if you came with somebody who brought you because you didn't know what you got into, and you're there sitting becomes your polite person. You can't get away. You have free choice to remember all of this or not. You'll leave differently. These things are cumulative. The energy that is generated by cognization, that is by awareness and listening, realization, changes lives. And you go away and you think about it. Then you have that beautiful little voice inside you that's always been there. Could this be right? Is it true? I know he was really strange. Channeling isn't for me. But there was something there. And the something, dear ones, was the truth of your spirit. Truth rings and sings. And whether it's from a scientist, or whether it's from a channel, or whether it's from you, realizing what you've got, it doesn't matter. Because it'll open you up. And you'll never be the same. This is the message of Kryon, and always has been, always will be. We'll repeat it again and again, with different humans sitting in front of us who are feeling and sensing and working the puzzle of Earth in a new energy that's never been here before. And so it is.